Thank you, everyone for joining. We'll start in a moment. Great to see so many people as of now. So we have, okay, we can see all of them on screen. Hi, Vijay sir.
Hi, hi. How are you?
Fine, fine, sir. All well.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah, same here, same here.
Hi Vijay, how are you?
Good, very good. Nice meeting you. At least this way.
Yeah,
Hi
I know,
Vijay,
long
how are
time.
you?
Good. Hi. How are you?
Fine, thank
Hello
you.
Vijay sir.
Good.
Just give me a moment. I just want to start. Okay. Yes. Okay, so welcome to part two. This is Ashish Gakrey. Welcome to part two, tips by executive search expert headhunters. I'm showing the screen right now, which is of part one. So because this is the part two, directly there is a relation to part one, part two. So I like to thank all the speaker of part one, who contributed to the uh, awareness session, which is different than the webinar. And now we are there. This part one happened in month of February, 2nd Feb, and it was attended by more than 300 people, up to 1,000 people registered. So thanks everybody, those who contributed, all speaker, host, organizer, supporter, everybody. I will stop sharing the screen and then let me share the screen now again. Is it visible on full screen now?
Yeah.
Yes Ashish.
Yes. Okay. Thanks. So I'm Ashish Gakrey, founder of HR Shaper. This is another awareness session by HR Shaper for the benefit of HR community, and again, like to thanks all speaker and people who are actually part of this. And this is supported by none other than our HR technology partners, Zimeo. They are into HRMS space, and we'll get to hear from them as well. Okay, so yes, this time in the part two, we have good news and bad news also. With the bad news, actually, originally it was planned for a 6 speaker in the overall slot of 2 hours. Okay, so unfortunately we got three. That's one good news. Another good news that we are going to reduce the time from 2 hours to 90 minutes now. Yeah, uh, having this, our speaker will have more time, our delegate will have more time to share their views. They can post the question and we can pick it up, so we'll have more time for a interaction, what I mean to say. So thank you, Preety, Kumar, Vijay, Karkare, Dr. Sanjay, Muthal, and dear Raja, I can call it, I can take the liberty to call him now Raja. And none other than our partner, HRMS technology partner, Zimeo. So what is HR Shaper is, 8 years old, non-registered virtual body, presence in each and every part of India, each and every part of almost the world, the major city. So almost in 25 to 30 countries, having a 15 to 20,000 member. Some of the webinar we did it during the COVID. You can see this, the global speaker, uh, Shiv Khera, then Dave Ulrich, Jason Everbook, then CEO of Programs Assessment, and then other speaker you can see on the screen. I don't want to take more time to introduce and talk about them. Then we did more awareness series, which was on employee engagement, employee experience, supported by Zozode. Then this was new normal of HR conferences, and this was a awareness series on HRMS, where more than 25-30 vendor were there. This was I was talking about new normal of HR conference, but now we are back to normal. I have seen a lot of event taking place now, yeah, in each and every city. That's good sign. This was the part two, which happened last year in October. There were 25 HRMS vendors. This was a world tour of Mid Africa region. So I did cover 4 countries over there in a day. Similar kind of session will be happening for Southeast Asia, covering 7 countries. This was the last global webinar, and Dr. Peter Kepley was there, and that went well. And thanks to him, and Dr. Christopher was there from SP Jain. Some of the other session I'm just showing on the screen. This is one of the biggest event which happen in the history of HR Shaper every year. HR Shaper cover almost 40 location in a day on one topic, one date. And it happened obviously virtually. And then, we did cover, 15 to 20 location from India, 6 to 7 from Southeast, 4 to 5 from Middle East, then, India neighboring countries, as well as, Africa countries as too. So what is going to happen in more, which is for HR community? Part 2 is already happening. We are part of it right now. Then the world tour of Southeast Asia is going to happen. Middle East will also happen virtually. More awareness session will happen. Physical HR Shaper Conclave already started. 3 are confirmed. 9th April happening in Pune. Then we are going to Delhi. Then we are going to Ahmedabad, Jaipur, and then coming back to Delhi, and then Bangalore also plan. So look forward to see you in respective city. This was I was talking about Southeast Asia tour. So in a day, all the 7 countries will be covered. There will be a 1 hour session for each country is having 6 to 7 CHR or HR leader. I can skip this. Okay, so we back to our session now. Thanks once again all the speaker. Thanks our technology partner Zimeo, and I would like to thanks dear Ajay also. I became friend in last 6 months. Thanks Ajay for supporting this. Then we have Ansh from Zimeo who will talk about what is Zimeo and all. Thank you Preety, Vijay, Dr. Sanjay Muthal, and dear Raja. I will pause here. Let me just take another 60 seconds. The topic is tips by executive search expert and headhunter. Actually, I was hunting executive search expert and headhunter in the entire process since last one month and 2 months, and none other than Raja was supporting me to make it happen and all. Thank you, Raja, for making it happen. He did really support, and he will be in case part 3 will be happening. Really, literally, I was hunting some of the executive search. Okay, how can really get them convinced to be part of it, because they are not very regular speaker in the conference. We have seen this. Yeah. So once again, thank you everybody. Let me invite Ansh from Zimeo to talk about the HRMS, the product they have. 5 minutes, Ansh, you have. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you so much. I can actually see a couple of my ex-professors in this call today. So it will be fun in this session. So I hope you can see my screen. So yeah, let me talk about Zimeo. So we talk ourselves as a #1 employee experience platform and not just an HRMS platform. So our focus is on employees first, and that's how we portray ourselves. So people being HRMS at payroll, engagement being our engagement solution, so which is similar to Slack, and benefits, which includes our health insurance and term and life insurance, loans, so personal loans or salary advances, all within a single platform. So that's what we are about. I will talk about our journey first. So we started our company in 2018, January 2018, and we launched our product within the 6 months time frame. We launched the payroll product in January 2019. So it took another 1 year almost to make the complete product, HRMS and payroll. Then in January 2020, we raised a funding from Yatra Angel Network. That was a good funding, seed funding that we got it. You can say pre-seed funding basically. And we got featured in top 30 startups to watch out for. And then in September 2020, we raised our $1.5 million seed funding by Next. So we were backed by a good amount of investors, Sayali being one of them. So pretty thanks to our investors who backed them portrayed us who backed us at that time. We launched a benefits module in April 2021, which was basically our salary advance module, term life insurance, and we have partnered with different vendors, and employees and our customers can directly take the benefit from there. Recently, we have also raised funding from India Mart. I guess the news is already out there. So we have raised around $2.3 million as of now. What the future looks like for us. So future is pretty interesting for us. We're looking to expand internationally. We are looking to add more modules as of now. So overall, if I talk about, we have 7 different products and 50 different modules. We are going to expand to more modules and build more products which are similar to the HRMs. If I talk about, this is the company overview. So overall, there are 600 plus CHROs who trust us with their processes. We do 1 million plus employee transactions per month. So that's a pretty huge number for a tech company. We have around 1 lakh plus active users on our platform, and we are present in 5 plus offices globally. So Gurgaon, Bangalore, Mumbai, UK, and UAE. So these are our offices I talk about. So these are our customers. You can see that there are pretty good amount of customers. We can talk about Bajaj Capital, Fleetex, iMocha, TVF, Yash Raj Films, Discovery, Burger King. So a few more enterprise clients are going to join in. So you can expect a good amount of traction here. Going next, so I will talk about the overall product suite that we have. So as I mentioned, the overall product we have bifurcated into 7 different modules, 7 different products as such, you can say. So recruitment and onboarding, so hire to retire solution, that's what I'm talking about. So the recruitment and onboarding module is there, core HR, basically that we're talking about. Then there is an employee engagement, which is something similar to Slack, where people can, where employees can interact with each other. HR can produce their polls, surveys, all of these things can be managed. Time and attendance of employees can be managed here. Employees can do their own employee self-service. They can mark their leaves, they can mark their attendance. Payroll, so basically the complete payroll solution can be managed from this platform. Employees can see the salary slips. Then there's a performance management solution, basically. So all the OKRs, all the 360-degree feedback can be managed here directly, and this can be done real time. All this can be managed real time. Managers can see the performance of their employees in real time. So this is the power that we're talking about. As we're talking about the recruitment ATS, we have partnered with around 15 to 16 different vendors. So Naukri.com, Indeed, Monster, Google, LinkedIn. So all this can be managed directly from our one ATS dashboard. We have seen from a research around 64% of recruiters face this challenge that their hiring ROI is not proper. So the ROI that needs to happen, there's a delay in hiring. There is sometimes delay in onboarding. People don't join properly at time. Since the COVID, the attrition rate has drastically risen. So even for companies like TCS, the attrition rate is 25%. So imagine what companies like startups or MSMEs are facing. I would like to switch over a short video. I'd like to showcase a short video of our product. Time permits.
It's happening, Ansh.
Yes, Ashish.
Let's move on, Ashish.
Uh,
Ashish, can you see my screen?
Yeah, but I can't see it. Just the PPT screen I can see.
Okay. Is it visible now?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, just you need to unmute the audio when you share. That time, there is option.
Okay. So let's skip this part. Okay.
So we can cover later on, Ansh. It's
Yeah.
sent on
Yeah.
YouTube. Just send me the link. I will run in between. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
So yeah, you can pause it. Over to you, Ashish.
Yeah. Okay. So you like to stop sharing?
Yeah.
Okay, great, Ansh. Thank you so much. Give my regard to Ajay. We are missing him on the screen and on the stage. Zimeo is HRMS, HR technology company. So anybody looking for HRMS, please explore, look at the demo and all. Thanks, Ansh, once again. Thanks for being a partner. Hi, Preety. Welcome to part two, tips by executive search expert. We have diversity. I can take
Hello.
the liberty to say now, uh, Preeti, because in the part one, many people were saying why there is no woman in the in the session. Though I
Actually,
approached many,
Okay,
last time.
yeah, I
so
approached many,
I know now why I am here.
yeah,
No,
No,
Preeti,
but
you're here because you're you.
correct. And Raja sir also tried many, we though there are less number of executive such expert being a female. So, but yeah, thank you so much, Preeti, for joining. I'm sharing the screen now, and this is here. Okay. So as I said, none other than person who also conceptualized this program, uh, Varadarajan. We call him Raja. He is known in the HR fraternity, mentor, coach to many people. He is a startup partner, board advisor, talent and strategy enable executive coach. MBA from XLRI. He is also, as an associate coach from Center for Creative Leadership USA, Hogan certified, and he has a more than 40 year of work experience. Worked in earlier companies and in the region. He worked in Middle East, Asian, Southeast Asia, UK, USA. Company he worked in McDonald's, Sundaram Clayton's, TVS, Price Waterhouse, KPMG, American Express, Wipro, Spectrum Mind, and then another BPO company. And last he was with Tata, okay, Tata Vistara. Thank you, sir. Thanks for making it happen. Part two, and I request you to set up an agenda. I will keep sharing also my input, but I request you to set up agenda. Okay, how did it happen in part one, and then how it is going to happen in part two, and your views on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashish. And wonderful to be here with the HR shapers and everyone else. Thanks, Sanjay, Vijay, and Preeti for being here. When Ashish and I were talking about what was required, especially with the 2-3 years of COVID and people saying they're getting frustrated, they want to go and they want to leave and they want to do something different, especially in the HR community. We said that why can't we look at getting experts who are headhunters, executive search experts, and ask them what are they looking for in people? What is it attracts people to them? Or how do people create that focus onto themselves? How do they brand themselves? How do people get hunted? All of us have that feeling that very nice when someone like Sanjay calls you and says, hey, I have an opening for you. How do you get attracted? Um, where do executive search people actually look for people? And what sort of leadership traits you need to exhibit for them to be recognized and for you to be visible? And all of us have aspirations of being on the board of companies, wanting to work with the board, work closely with the board and be in the board. So we said, why can't we get people who are experts in this, share tips, share their own experiences, share what they are looking for normally, and also share secrets of how do we get noticed, because that is one very critical aspect. Because I know some people who say, "Arey yaar, I never get called by an executive search consultant. I don't know how I am going to get attracted by that person." So we said, let's ask these people and get their inputs. And in that way, also helps us as HR professionals to grow and also to understand what is in it for each one of us to look at things. And that's how the whole thing began. We had a set of about 6 people in the first round. We would have loved to have 10 in one go, but then we said it'll go on for 3-4 hours. So we said, let's break it up into 2. So we had about 5-6 people, and it was a great success. Lots of inputs came in from them. So we are looking forward to interacting with the 3 of the experts today so that we get different perspectives on what is required for us to be the different us. So that is where we are. Thank you, Ashish. Over to you.
Thank you, Raja sir. And you made one statement that people are asking, okay, why they are not being hunted. It reminds me of one statement which is related to the love triangle. Okay, if someone is your, he or she will come back, and if that person not come back, which means he or she was not yours. Okay, how do I relate to the how do I relate to this field? Okay, only executive search and headhunter can hunt you. You cannot hunt them. Yeah. I have seen people are saying, okay, can I send a CV to headhunter and executive search? No, you cannot. If you are needed, they will reach out to you. Don't worry. Okay. So I think that is a very short message from you, because we have dynamic executive search expert and headhunter who can share the insight and all. And yes, and this will cover a lot of things. How to be hunted, what are the skills required to be on the top, where they can see you, whether you are on social media in the conference, or you are famous within the circle of your own organization. You are working in a company which is most needed by the executive search expert, right? Okay, thanks, Raja sir, for setting up the context. I'm sharing the screen now. So let me invite the first speaker of the day, none other than Mr. Vijay Karkare, Managing Director, Cornerstone International Group, India. He set up this operation of Cornerstone International Group in India in 2004. Over the year, he built leading executive search and leadership consulting organization spread across 4 cities. More than 17 years of experience. With that, he has handled more than 1200 C level, CXO level search in India, couple of leadership consulting engagement. He started his career with Mark as a management trainees. Then he was into different industries, manufacturing project, corporate planning in the same company, in what I mean to say, in the same function. And then different companies, LKM, ABC consultant, and then his move to recruitment industry in late 90s was a natural career transition, and he never looked back. So, sir, you are being so transparent that never look back. I think you wanted to go into executive search since beginning. We like to hear from you. Over to you. Okay, so before you start, sir, let me share the format. As I said, from 2 hours we reduced to 90 minutes, and we have more time where a speaker can share the knowledge. So 10 to 15 minutes can be for your speech, and in case you want to reduce and have more interaction through delegate Q&A, most welcome. But 10 minutes you can cover your solo insight. Thank you.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
I'm audible. Okay. Okay. So just two quick remarks. You said that you were always aspiring to be an executive search professional. But if you look at the career track of most of the search firms, search consultants or leaders, you'll find that they have come by accident, more by accident than by design. That's really a fact, because most of us, we may not, because this profession came into reckoning only, I think, after 1990. Slowly, though BP Agarwal started the recruiting industry way back in 70s, but search as a practice, which is different than a selection, started getting recognized only with the entry of multinational firms somewhere in late 90s, early 2000. And and so most of the people who are senior people, and ABC's strategy at that point of time was attract people who come with a consulting mindset, consulting background, and slowly push them. So I joined ABC way back in early 90s in their management consulting team with almost 12, 13 years of experience. And after working for 4 or 5 years in the consulting domain, I slowly was being pushed into the recruitment, and I didn't like it at that point of time. So when I was formally transferred as a location head for one of the locations in Mumbai, I in fact started looking out for a job. But the work was so tremendous and interesting that within 6 months I just forgot that I am looking for a job, and that's how I never looked back and looked at. I may have changed the jobs in terms of companies, but the profession remains same. I think that's the brief background. And if you look at diversity and inclusion, possibly this group may have only one, but our industry is well known for most of the people coming from diversity. In fact, we are in the minority many times in many firms, even so within Cornerstone as well. So we are just 4 or 5 male members, and then remaining all uh, and women, and they're doing extremely great job. So just to give you a brief background about Cornerstone, just 2 lines. So Cornerstone is a global executive search and strategic leadership advisory firm headquartered in the US. It started way back in 1989, and today it has spread to close to 60 offices globally and across all the continents, right from America, Europe, and Asia. Uh, in each of this continent, we have roughly 18 to 20 offices. So India, I set up the operations in a small way back in Mumbai, from Mumbai in 2004. And our focus has always been predominantly on the C-suite executive search positions, and predominantly CXO level. And over the years, we have built a team, but still it remains a boutique search firm. And we also have undertaken a couple of projects in the area of leadership consulting. So that's our background of Cornerstone. So first, when it comes to why do people approach a executive search firm, I think that's the basic, because if I look at it, why someone should approach an executive search firm? There is absolutely no need for many people, but by and large, if you are doing extremely well, you feel that you are stagnated. Your boss is very young, and that's the time you start feeling suffocated in your organization. And that's the time possibly you start looking at who could be the people whom you can contact. Uh, and then you start your search, because some bit of restlessness has set in you. Alternatively, you could be in a position wherein you are recently changed a job after working for many years in a well-established firm into a startup or an organization where the culture is extremely bad, and you start feeling suffocated. That's the time you start looking for a job. Or there are some people who were entrepreneurs and who approach me that they are now looking at a corporate career. Or there could be people who are selling off their company, or the company is getting sold, and that's the time they are looking at work. So the reasons are very varied. But is approaching search firm a short way of getting a dream job? I would tend to say no, and I'll explain later. Just to give an example, I get typically 4 to 6 senior people approaching me virtually every day. So on an annual basis, it's almost more than 2,000 people reaching out to me. And these are extremely senior people who write to me personally, and they want some kind of a career guidance or a support. it's very difficult for me individually or as a firm to talk to each and every person. So out of these 2000 plus people last year, what we could place was something like around 4 people. And these were very critical positions. And without this feed, possibly we may not have been able to close those positions because they were extremely, so it just happened that the person approached me. There was an opening in which his profile matched perfectly, and we could actually add it to our pool of candidates. So those people who, I'll just briefly explain the process, what a search firm does for the benefit of people who are curious to know what does these people do. So typically a search firm focuses on CXO level positions or C-suite positions, and typically the firm is run by practice groups or industry verticals. And so there are different partners who will be focusing on, someone focusing on possibly aerospace, someone focusing on technology, someone focusing on pharma and life sciences. So you must know, before you approach any firm, you must know who are the people and what they're specializing in. Because if you reach out to a pharma specialist within a search firm and you are an aerospace professional, it is of no use because you're approaching the wrong person, and your email or a reach out may even go unnoticed or without any answer coming back to you. So you should do your own homework in terms of what the search firm is, which are their clients, and possibly who are the people who are running the firm, and then approach the search firm for a support. So that's the one. Now, in terms of the process, because search firm typically works on a mandate given by the client, and when we get a mandate, then only there is a scope for adding a person from our kitty, from our database, or people who are reaching out to us. So typically in a mandate, what happens is that you go deep into the requirement of the client. You actually do a 360-degree understanding of the client in terms of the size, scale, complexity of the organization, the position we are talking about, in the context of the organization. Again, there you do a deep dive through discussions, then you come out with the right profile who will match the requirement. And then you decide from where these people are likely to come, and from which industries. So the first choice is always the competing industries. Second choice is related industries. And the third choice is from outside these two baskets. So once you make this list of target companies, and most of the search firms, they follow similar methodology with varying degree of focus. Once you identify these industries and companies, then you start identifying people who will match these requirements. So therefore, it's a very precision targeted kind of a role. And therefore, your profile fitting into any of the job requirements, those probabilities may be less. But nevertheless, there are advantages of being in touch with some of the search firms, which I'll talk to you later. But you should understand and should not expect much that just because you're writing or you're following up, you will get a job, because otherwise you will be disappointed. Developing a friendship as a part of your network, part of your career plan is good, but that's not the only solution. I think that I want to make it very clear. So typically in a leadership role, what do the search firms must be looking for? If I can get any answers, what are the qualities of the people? If anyone wants to share on the chat, then I can tell whether we are on the right track. Let's make it an interactive process. Ashish, what do you think?
Sorry, sir. So we will get to know through only chat box, in case they like to share
Okay.
their views.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll complete this and then we will have the ethics trust factor. Yeah, I think that's very good. I think if any one or two more answers come. So what do search firms look for when they're hiring for a leadership role?
So one input I can directly say, see, at the leadership lore, I think it is taken by default that you know your subject, how well you can
Yes.
manage a stakeholder, how good you
Yeah.
are into relationship. I think that I can put it as a first with my experience.
Yeah. Absolutely. See, subject matter expertise is important, but there are examples where people had the ability to create more leaders. Absolutely fantastic. Subject matter expert, relationships, ability to record relationships, HR, communication, lead the organization performance. Great. I think we have got all the answers, most of it. Now, on the subject matter expertise, we domain industry qualification, trusted experience, thanks. So great answers. I think we are all glued in, and thank you for your answers. On the subject matter, we always believe that and most of the industry focuses on. The assumption is that if someone has done it, seen it and done it, he is in a better position to do it again. But is it really true? So the answer is no. In my practical experience, just because someone has worked in a particular industry uh, and has handled certain size and scale, uh, he could be successful in a new organization. Now that's not true, because there are many examples where you get people from the same domain, but they have failed. And there are examples, though few in numbers, wherein you have got people from entirely different industry spectrum, and those leaders have really succeeded in shaping the organization. So I would recommend you, all of you, I will share the link to Ashish. I think one podcast, if all of you who are interested in their career, uh, you should regularly listen to, is Play to Performance by Deepak. Who was early, and he runs a beautiful uh, podcast and a series, and wherein he interviews a lot of CEOs. And so, what actually picks a leader? What actually makes people successful? Now, a lot of insights you get week after week, or every 15 days, as and when get published. And you can go through the past podcasts. So, if at all you had to do some research on this particular topic, because it's a very vast topic and everyone is interested in furthering their career. So if you have to get your tips, the best tips I found amongst various things which are available today, this is the one which I would recommend very, very strongly. So when we hire people in the leadership position, the first thing I look at is the humility. Just to give an example, I won't name the person, but he became eventually the managing director of a very large consumer company and very well respected company. And when I met him for a role, he was heading the sales and marketing many years back. And as we're having tea, the tea became there was the tea became a little, what happens is that you have the milk and the milk got accumulated there. So in Marathi, we call it as sai. So this fellow, what he did is that he just dipped his fingers, removed the thing and drank the tea. So that was such a humility, and he awed me with his subject matter expertise, the way he talked with passion, the way he talked. And eventually, as you keep meeting people, you always mark that this fellow one day will become great. So you get that kind of a sense, because leadership, there are ways and means and parameters on which you can judge people, but only when you see leadership in action. So that humility actually touched me. He didn't bother to ask for a second cup of tea or shout at the waiter. he just simply went ahead with his discussion, and so that actually impressed me. So humility is one I always look for in people, how they approach things and situations. Other thing I look at is essentially energy and passion, because without energy and passion, essentially, do you love your job? Is what I look for in any leader I interview or I meet. Uh, because you need today, in today's complex world, a lot of energy to be put into the job. And unless you're passionate about what you're doing, you love your job, you cannot succeed. The third thing I look at is intellectual firepower. Now, intellectual firepower is the one, when you start talking, you realize now these are the people who would typically would have a higher IQ, but that's not the only thing. They are storehouse of data many times. They can make a very complex problem into a very simple solution-based approach. So these are the people who are not daunted, because their intellectual ability, they can crunch the data, uh, they can ask critical questions, they're able to come to the answers much faster compared to other people. And last but not the least is honesty and integrity. I think that's very, very important, because some of those who may have worked with dishonest people who tend to take credit for the work of others. What is honesty and integrity? These are the people who are not afraid to admit their mistakes. And one last characteristic is the leadership. Are they able to carry the people? So these 4-5 traits are the most important as we look for in senior candidates. So if you're approaching a headhunter, how you make an impact and get noticed? Am I within time, or if I'm exceeding you, let me know.
Yeah, so last couple of minutes, then we'll take the question.
Okay, okay. So maybe 3-4 minutes I will finish. So how you make an impact? Now the people, the best job candidates are the ones who are storytellers. Now there was one CV which I received from a CEO, and when I looked at it, I was terribly impressed, because he worked in 3 or 4 different sectors and handled a turnover of more than 600 crores. But when I started talking, he was extremely bored. I cut off within say 5-7 minutes, because when I asked him, tell me about this job, he said, I implemented strategies and the turnover went up by, then I did turnaround. So there was nothing, no detail, nothing, and it was absolutely boring. Whereas what by storytelling, what I mean is that these are the people who can actually explain you about who, what, where, when, how of the moment. Essentially, they weave a story into what they had done and what they have achieved, because only when they only when you hear the stories, you come to know, understand the person, what he has exactly has done. By saying that I increased the turnover by 20% means nothing to me, but if you give a context of that in terms of the story, that I joined this company, I was a regional head. This was it was becoming negative. These are the actions we took, and and some worked, some didn't work. This was a learning. So as in when you hear a person talking in those terms, that's the time you realize, and that person makes an impact on you. So the people who are able to tell stories about their job performance, these are the ones who make an impact on you and you remember them.
Yeah.
So many
Yeah.
times when you are interviewing people, what happens is that people start talking about the activities they do. Like I'm driving the sales function or organizing investor meets. Many activities are plenty. Now, what I tell them is that you get paid for the activities. You get paid for your activities, but you get the next job or a promotion based on the impact you make. So most of the people, many times they forget this particular aspect. So they tend to focus. If you see the CVs also of many even senior people, you'll find it is full of activities. Uh, in any role, or if it is a HR role, a lot of activities will be mentioned, managing performance management system, this or that. But what is the impact ultimately on the organization?
Correct.
So activities are important, but activities don't lead you to the next job, or they don't lead you to a promotion. In order to that, you must highlight what is the impact you have done on the organization. I think that is very important.
Yeah.
So typically, my advice to people is that if they're highlighting their performance or anything, they also must put it in the context of the size and scale, because many people, they may have worked with good companies, but it's not that everyone will know their company. So what you need to do is that you need to describe what company you are working with, what this company is all about, in what business it is, what is the size of the firm, and where do you fit exactly. So I'm heading the sales and marketing function of 1,000 crore company, and my role is all India, or my role is India plus Southeast Asia. Now, unless you specify this, you can't expect the interviewer or the person you are interacting with to know. And so that is very important, to first define the role you are performing in the context of the organization and give all the size and scale. Because when I'm interviewing people, I have a job to be filled, and that job has dimensions, and those dimensions need to be met by the candidate. Now, if the candidate is hiding his dimensions, how do I know whether he's the right fit? So from that point of view, I think if you can highlight the organization, the context, the size, very important, and then restrict the number of activities. Activities, as I told you, can give you only the salary. But right, especially in the last or 10 years, what is the impact you have, and quantify it. I saved 20 crores, added 20 crores bottom line. Unless you make it, uh, and also why a reasonable profile writing is important, because it gives you a chance to call for interview, and in the interview you can direct that interview. If you have written certain data points, the person will ask, oh, you did this, how you manage it. Whereas if you have not written it, the first hour will go in discovering the thing. So that's my humble suggestion to the people, that take some pain in terms of writing your profile, 2 page, 3 page, but bring about in a succinct manner these points. So because you have to match what the headhunter is looking for. A headhunter is looking out to fill a job, and that job has size, scale, and complexity. So in your profile also, they will look for the size, scale, and complexity as one parameter. Now, how do you land into dream job? That's one of the topic. Now, according to me, there is no substitute for hard work. Hard work, passion for performance, passion for results. These are very important things. Taking the initiative within the organization to take up additional responsibilities, working on cutting edge new trends which are emerging. The headhunters, as and when they need.
Yeah.
Uh, that also will become important.
So,
Uh,
can I, okay,
yeah,
just like to take one question, sir, which is being sent to me personally. Uh,
yeah,
because people, like, people want to reach out to executive headhunter and executive search expert and headhunter,
yeah,
considering they are at any level. So, you like
yeah,
to share that, okay, up to what level executive search expert look for a people, and what is the
yeah,
salary criteria? Because, okay, if somebody has a salary of 20 lakhs, I'm sure executive search expert will not look into, or some
yeah,
high level designation. So please share these two things.
yeah. See, typically the CXO level salaries in India for mid-size firms, I'm not talking of the large size firms, they will start typically at 100,000 US dollars and go anywhere up to $400,000-500,000 for the C-suite. So if you're aiming for that at the first level, you should be somewhere closer to that. So 20 lakh people, definitely, of course, a lot of people, they write to us, but we send them a polite note that we will get back to you.
So, sir, one
So-
inside query I like to know. What about the HR field?
HR people, they find job for themselves, I think, most of the time than
Okay.
through
I think
headhunters.
Ashish was asking the salary levels. He's trying to test out the field.
Yeah, because people are most of the time they say, okay, I mean, they don't look at key, okay, what is my salary and what executive search expert look for, their ex salary and all. Okay, thank you, sir. There are some input are coming in the chat box. Considering the time, I just like to start the second session as well. And
Yeah.
any last point you like to make it, sir?
Yeah. So one is when you're writing your profile, you should use calendaring technique in terms of career progression, because that's where the people are interested. And second is, once you land into a new job, you should take some professional help in terms of onboarding, because typically 30 to 40% of the new hires, they fail within a year. And that's because some of the vital mistakes they do. So you should take some coaching, you should take some advice, you should study the organization, you should prepare a plan. And so we have one partner in Cornerstone who is an expert in onboarding. He is writer of the first 100 days action plan. And he charges a company typically something like 40 to 50,000 US dollars
Okay.
as fees for doing the onboarding for the leaders. So that's another last tip I would like to give.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Please be there and keep interacting with our delegates through chat box. And so that was
Sure.
Mr. Vijay Karkare from Cornerstone, MD of India operation. Thank you once again. Let me invite second speaker now. I'm going to share the screen, and this second session will be chaired by none other than Dear Raja. Okay, so here is the screen. You can see. Welcome, Preety. Thanks once again. So she is founding and managing partner of Amrop India, and she has been instrumental in paving the path for Amrop India growth, leading market position. She has also played very important leadership role in Amrop globally, in previous role as a part of the Global Executive Board, past chair of Global Marketing Committee, past chair of Editorial Board, with steer all thought leadership initiative at Amrop. She primarily leads CEO appointment at the board mandate, and given her deep understanding of the leadership matters and client talent issues, she is also sought as a trusted advisory on external succession, board advisory, and what next in the world of leader. Let me hand over to Raja sir to start the session.
Thank you, Ashish. It's wonderful to have Preety here. I know Preety now for almost 3 decades. She's a person who's so
Raja,
dedicated.
you're now telling my age, your age and my age.
No, I am only 25 now.
Okay.
No, I think.
And we started 38 years back. Very good.
So Preety has been a friend, and Preety has also been a phenomenal professional. She actually, Vijay was saying that some people get into it by accident rather than by design. But here is the reverse. I thought Preety got in by design and wanted to be in this field, and she grew up with such a focus. And Amrop growth in India and across, I would say globally, owes a lot to Preety. And that is how what Preety is. And, over a period of time, she said, enough of hiring, enough of CXO hiring. Let me focus on CEOs and boards. And, a lot of us aspire to be on the boards of companies. Lots of us in the HR fraternity want to be in the board and also want to interact with the board effectively so that we get noticed. And once you start getting noticed by the boards, other boards also start noticing you. So to that extent, there's a very clear linkage of how visible you are. So over the next 15, 20 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, we will have a chat with Preety. And before we start, I have some questions in mind. But before that, Preety, why don't you share your thoughts and perspectives, especially focused on what HR can aspire on getting into the board, how they can aspire for the board positions, and what you look for in boards.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Raja. It's a pleasure to be here on this forum. Thank you, Ashish, also for making this happen finally. So as I understand, primarily the audience we have today there are leaders from HR at different stages of their careers. That's the kind of audience we have today. And you know, I'm expected to provide from an Amrop standpoint, what are we seeing as some emerging capabilities, skills in the domain of HR and in general in leadership per se, what are we seeing as emerging skills? I will bring the angle of board during this conversation, and I think some of it is like a byproduct. So I think it may be, Raja, if it's okay with you, I'll give a few introductory statements on Amrop and also try and help the audience connect with when I'm saying a few things, where are we coming from? Why am I saying what I'm saying? Just to, you know, sort of contextualize and give a perspective. Sure. So, I mean, some of you may know, but I'd still sort of do it as a blank slate, that Amrop is a global firm. We are seen as rendering services and specializing in area of leadership. There are 4 things that we do as a firm. We do executive search, where me and a whole bunch of my colleagues around the world, we help companies make CXO appointments, or what I would call as critical leadership appointments, because not all of them sometimes are CXOs, but they are critical leadership roles. So that this practice of ours cuts across industries. So when I talk of HR, from a CXO standpoint, I'm drawing on the perspective that we have as a firm when we do CHRO appointments or when we do CHRO succession appointments for our clients across industries, across size and scale of companies and stage of companies. So I'm really interpreting here how clients are defining their needs around HR, how when they may want to change an HR leadership role, why are they driving that change? And also in that same process, we get to understand what's not working. So I'm going to draw upon that sort of perspective. Just as data point, in any given year, we as a firm in India per se do anywhere from around 15 to 20 senior HR mandates. And at a global level, this number would be around 100, 150 plus. So, so it's a fairly contemporary practice. We are sort of plugged into what's happening in the world of CHROs. The second piece of work that we do is on org advisory. Now here we are helping companies shape their org design. So when we do that, we also get into details of how HR organizations are shaping. And when those organizations are being shaped, again, that's a reflection of what is expected from HR in terms of bandwidth, in terms of, you know, how they need to connect with the rest of the organization, and so on. So, you know, some of these inputs come in. As part of this org design, we also get to discuss with our clients key management forums, key forums which are either thinking forums or decision-making forums. So what is the seat HR is getting on the table? Which seats are they getting into? And why clients and companies are wanting HR on those? That includes boards as well, because boards is again another sort of decision-making or governance forum. The third practice we have is a board practice where we help companies look at boards. We do board appointments. we do board advisory work, we do board benchmarking and board evaluation. And I'm going to bring from that practice of ours perspective on what boards are prioritizing on. So whether it's a charter on institutionalization, whether it's governance, whether it's succession, whether it's things around compensation design and how boards are getting involved, whether it's risk management. So what are these things boards are prioritizing on, and how HR can plug into these aspects is another perspective with which I would sort of provide my inputs. And lastly, we have an external succession as a line of service. We help companies look at succession in a more robust manner. So here we are having conversations with clients on what is future of their organization, their business, what is the future of leadership in their company, and many a times it's also CHRO succession, and where companies are talking about that. So that's another perspective I will draw on. So that's sort of the nutshell of the various things we do as a firm and how those perspectives I'm sort of drawing on. I don't have slides. I'm just going to talk it through, and I'm going to focus on 3 or 4 core areas. Firstly, the area of what is becoming important for all CXOs, and I'm going to translate that for HR, is strategy and business connect. So when we look at, I'm looking at any leader today who's sitting in any critical role, one of the first things we focus on, does he or she really understand business? To what depth do they understand business? Do they understand where the organization is headed? What is their articulation and understanding of strategy? And hence this whole area of strategy and business connect. And I must tell you, a lot of times we hear that HR guys don't get it. That the business connect, the strategic connect that is expected, HR people don't get into enough depth or don't have that in the same rigor as is expected when you are in a senior critical leadership role. So I'm going to sort of talk about what this means. How are we seeing it? So when I, as a search consultant, or I as a sort of person who's meeting a range of leaders, how do I get this input? What are CEOs and boards and CXOs expecting from their HR partners on strategic and business connect? And how is it assessed? And hence, I hope you'll be able to translate that into what is it that you need to do at your end to be able to get there. So when we talk of strategy and business connect, I think one thing which I can say, progressive HR leaders actually demonstrate that in fair degree of depth. What does that mean? It means that they are quite plugged into what is the changing dimension of their own business. They are plugged into what's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years in their business. So for example, if a financial services company is transitioning into a fintech company, a local company is becoming a global company, a single business model company is moving into a diverse multiple business models. Company which is largely an organic growth driven company is getting into acquisitions and new partnerships, and hence the entire shape of the business is changing. In retail industry, for example, companies are moving from physical retail to omni-channel to, let's say in case of QSR, cloud kitchens. So this transition is happening. I think what is expected is how much do HR leaders understand this in depth? Are they able to articulate this entire shift that is happening in there? Are they able to foresee that in the next 2 to 3 years? Are they able to translate this shift into how will business actually get built and change? Do they have a deeper view into what changes will happen in each of the functions? How the operating level business will undergo change? So when we speak to progressive HR leaders, they actually tell us all this, which means they are plugged into it. They have a fairly detailed view. They have an operating view. They have a strategic view, and they are able to build this view across each of the functions and each of their businesses. They also provide a very detailed view into, as these changes are happening, what is going to be the impact of these changes on design of organizations, design of functions, how capabilities in the organization will shift, how organization processes, flows, and culture will need to shift in order to drive this change. So that's the second level of connect they demonstrate, because they're able to translate these shifts into some of the key operating organizational shifts that are needed. Now, we also see that in sort of actually showing effectiveness as a progressive HR leader, we find that these kinds of understanding which they have built, they use these understanding to drive a range of things inside the organization. So firstly, they become thought partners with other CXOs, with the CEO, and with the board. Because you have understood things, you have your own view on what is the impact of these shifts on some of the key areas, whether it's performance metrics, whether it's org design, whether it's new capabilities, creation of new roles. So you've built your understanding, you've translated that, but you know, thought partnership with CXOs. You are to say something?
No, your
okay.
network was giving an issue, but now it's okay.
Okay. Do you want me to speak louder?
No. There was an issue with the network, but that's okay now.
Okay. So they're using this to co-create strategy. So these CXOs are actually seeing the HR leaders as with the same seat on the table. So a lot of times when we talk to CEOs, they're saying HR should have a seat on the table. That is not by title, and that's not by right. You can by title and by right have a seat on the table, but what are you really doing there? And hence, are you really seen as somebody who has a seat on the table? I think these are the things that, so how do you use all this knowledge to be the thought partner, to co-create strategies, to drive decision-making in the organization around how do organization structures remain flexible and they are self-evolving? How do you create quasi-entrepreneurial organizations? How do you create compensation design, which is actually going to fund and align with what are some of these strategic shifts? How are you driving decisions on centralization and decentralization inside each function? What are some of the horizontal capabilities that need to get created? Because these are very important capabilities which will fund resources for future. So decisions like these, you are driving when you are co-creating strategies with your own organization and business, because you have fundamentally understood the business shifts and you are demonstrating the strategy and business connect. I think the CEO here looks at the CHRO or the HR function to give him or her a cover. When I say cover, what does that mean? So one is the cover that I just talked about, which is you are partnering with CXOs, you are driving, you co-creating, you're driving a certain decision, but you're also giving a cover because you're preventing some of these, the downsides of, because what's happening, these changes are happening so fast, everybody is in a hurry. So, and again, since we are plugged into corporate world, we see this very often. There's a tendency to build silos. So each of the CXOs will want to create more inside their function. They will want to create, own the entire charter. So they start creating roles and capabilities inside their organization, and which ends up creating a silo. So how do you prevent such decisions being made? How? By giving a cover to the CEO. When you are negotiating with these CXOs on how their organizations will evolve, how capabilities will get built, you also don't allow them to make those decisions which could lead to inefficiencies or silo creation or increasing of costs, etc., etc. So, those are the sort of things that you're supposed to demonstrate. So in nutshell, when I'm saying strategy and business connect as an HR function or as an HR leader, I talked about three things just to, consolidate. I'm saying a very close, detailed understanding of what's happening in your business, how the business is shifting, have a detailed understanding function by function at an operating level, how things will change, how business will get built. Using this to understand what are some of the key HR decisions or areas that you need to drive. and then using all that knowledge to start becoming a thought partner with your colleagues, with your CXOs, negotiate with them, co-create with them, prevent the organization into going into overdrive on cost structures, etc., but equally being effective and so on. So that's on the HR and strategy.
Preety, let me ask you a question here. I know that Amrop does a lot of HR hiring, okay, at the senior level, critical HR hiring. So if you were to go and zero in on a person, what do you look for? Because many times we keep saying that HR is agnostic of industry. So what do you look for in a person to consider this person to be a good HR fit for a senior level role in another organization?
So, partly, for me, it begins really with what I just talked about, Raja. It's about really having a strong, sometimes I find that I have the luxury, or firms like us have a luxury of always meeting smart people. So, there's a lot of filtering that happens even before I meet somebody. So by design, I am always meeting smart, good people. Very rarely I meet people who are useless. So I think and hence I may not be able to respond in a 0 to 10 manner, but I can certainly respond in a 6 to 10 manner. Okay. Saying there are people, leaders who are already at 6 or 7, and I'm looking for an 8 or 9. And hence, how do I make those decisions and differentiation? How do I assess? So it really sort of goes back to the first part that I talked about, this whole core understanding of strategy and business connect, translating that into HR strategies, HR key elements which they will drive, being front-ended in relating with your CXO. So not being an execution person. Of course, execution is important. So if you're just going to execute what your CIO is telling you to do, or what a CFO wants to do, or what a head of operations wants to do, you're then an execution guy, and frankly, we pick it up very quickly. The moment you fail to see a person not demonstrating an in-depth understanding of strategy and business connect, and you realize they are doing a whole bunch of execution, and you start asking, but why are you doing this? What is it that the organization wanting to achieve? How have you interpreted this? Socha kaise hai? So, that piece to me is a big differentiator. And frankly, half the time, if I don't get comfort, my interest is lost. So that becomes a very big piece. See, we are also fairly savvy in reading business outcomes and correlating HR's impact on business outcomes. So by very quick, we also, when I'm meeting somebody, I already have perceptions on what that company has done. So if, for example, if I was meeting you when you were in Vistara, I would have a view on where Vistara is, what Vistara's challenges could be. So it's a very fluid, active conversation. It's not a classical interview where, you have a question, you answer. It's a discussion. So I think what I always tell candidates whenever I'm briefing them on their next level meeting is that saying, please don't go for an interview. If at your level you're giving an interview, something's wrong either with you or with the company who's taking an interview. Go prepared for a discussion. So you should be ready to respond to if there's a question and get into, and like Vijay said earlier in the earlier session, that getting into details is important. So if you don't demonstrate then you are seen as either not having done it or not knowing enough, and actually being what I would call as, on the surface. So but again, you need to be in that meeting driving a discussion. So what is the role that you are being interviewed or you're coming for, and how are you going to drive that discussion? How are you going to show your readiness? The responsibility is equally yours. So my role as a person who's assessing, I'm sorry, Raja, maybe I'm going a little all over, in trying to give an answer. But I'm saying my responsibility as I will assess on this, but there's equally your responsibility on being able to highlight what is it that you bring to the table.
Great. I have time.
So that's on strategy.
One moment. Ashish, I have another 2 minutes or 5 minutes.
Yeah, so we can take one more conversation or question. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Preety, go ahead. Sorry. I just wanted to check the time. That's all.
So shall I talk about two more areas that I had prepared on?
Yeah.
Or do you want to ask questions? How do you want to do this?
No, you can speak briefly on the area you wanted to speak on, and we can take questions on that also.
The second very important area, so I talked about strategy and business connect. The second very important area is tech in HR. So the fact that digital and tech strategies are now, all pervasive. It's, no organization, no industry today and no function today is sans digital technologies. So the question here is, what is HR doing? And hence, again, I'm going to say, what are we seeing as what successful HR leaders or HR functions are doing, and what skills are they demonstrating to us, or they are expected to demonstrate as far as tech in HR is concerned. So the tech in HR, really, if I see, there are 2-3 things that are happening. Firstly, in a more traditional sense, the shared services part was, and the automation inside shared services, I would call this as a traditional part of tech. The more meaningful stuff in tech is happening today on areas like employee engagement, learning and development, HR analytics, using HR analytics to drive decision-making on performance, on succession, on talent benchmarking. So that's where HR tech or new tech is being deployed. The core processes in HR are shifting, where we are seeing a lot more real-time data and versus, what you used to have these cycles of quarterly reviews and annual reviews. I think all those are changing into saying real-time information, real-time data. So that's what we are seeing as shift in HR, from a technology standpoint in HR.
Okay.
So what are the kind of skills that are emerging now in HR as far as tech is concerned? Firstly, at a very operating level, technology people are actually getting into HR.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this hybridization happening where the technical people have found a space in HR, and they have now blossomed as HR leaders also. So they are bringing this blended skill. So if there are tech guys sitting on this forum, don't be afraid of going into HR. You're not losing your domain, because today tech is inside every function.
The second part is that the reverse is also true, Preety. HR people are getting into tech, in HR tech.
Right. The other part is that other skill we are seeing very differentiated in HR leaders is this whole centricity on data and analytics. So these leaders are actually driving data, their understanding of data, their understanding of data-led decision making, their understanding of analytics. They are actually showing exceptional skills. So if you guys on this forum are shying away from this area, you are only creating, this is an edge capability. This is going to have even more importance in the future. So using technology, understanding data, analytics-led decision-making, and driving that charter through your role, whatever role you're doing, is an important game that you should start playing very quickly. I mean, I met people who said we've created a Netflix inside our organization on the whole area of learning. So wo kar rahe hain. These guys are creating white label solutions on the tech side by partnering with startups. There are enough startups today in the tech ecosystem which are focusing on HR tech or HR related areas. So identifying them, partnering with these startups, using, so being experimentative, etc. So that's the part on the.
I have one question which is.
Do I still have time?
We are short of time for you. I have one question which is I would say a very interesting and controversial question to ask. But, it's going to be a tricky question for you to manage. Getting onto the
Tell me.
board is something which everyone aspires for. There is a question which says, when you get into the board, there's a need for a deeper understanding of integrity, capability to assimilate the business, etc., which you mentioned. So take the example of, say, an ICICI or of the most recent one, NSE. What would be your comments on how to identify this when you're meeting with them?
You're right. That's a tricky one. So firstly, there's no sort of perfect science on this. Okay, so a lot of it is what I would call as derived associative assessment versus a direct assessment or direct data. I mean, direct data to aasan hai decision. If you have data points, if the person has been involved in an organization, I mean, fortunately, firms like us have a fair degree of access and fair degree of information, which we keep gathering. So, thoda, a little bit comes from there itself. Yeah, the recent ICICI piece, the insider trading, I guess you're talking about that. And the lady involved.
I'm talking about the insider trading as well as what happened in NSC very recently, where a yogi from the Himalayas guided the person.
So all I can tell you is that when you meet people, these signals do come through, Raja.
Okay.
They do come through. Now, I met one of the ladies we are talking about in these two examples, and I haven't met the other one. And I won't tell you which one because that
don't worry. The
one that I met, the one who I met and I've sort of known her for some time, it doesn't come as a surprise.
Okay.
Because you're talking of people who've not, there's a sort of general level of higher flamboyantness. There's a general level of socially driven networking kind of a stance. There's a fair degree of desire to put yourself out there in the media. So when you are driven by those factors, and when you gloat over things, when you can't have an in-depth conversation, so these are all indicators of a certain level of shallowness. And so I'm saying I'm sorry, I don't have very specific correlated factors here.
This is good enough. Because I think, as over a period of time, you are meeting with so many people that you get the gut which comes into play, and that feelers which you get based on what you see in them. Good. Thank you so much, Preety, for your wonderful thoughts.
Sorry, just one more point, which if I could, on this point that you talked about, which is this issue, how do you pick that? So in my view personally, and this is where again HR needs to be very sensitive, compensation models and their design is a big driver of greed and big driver of unethical behavior. So this entire financial meltdown that we all see in 2008, 2009, it's a financial services industry issue where we all are aware of the kind of bonus structures, the kind of huge incentive programs, the kind of compensation levels that those guys operate at. When we look at some of the strategic consulting firms and what has driven, and there are many examples of, people who, have done this insider trading from these companies. It's, and now we are seeing again in this startup world, the unicorns, a whole range of governance issues which are emerging. So, I like this whole governance inside the private equity industry. There are some issues sitting there as well, because you're trying to drive valuation of companies. You have your own exit linked to that, and linked to that exit is your upsides, your earnings, etc. So this whole area of compensation and what I would call as FOMO, which is fear of missing out. And if somebody else has made 400 crores, you have a FOMO, and then you start doing all kinds of things. So I think I would so compensation design is a very important area. Again.
Great insight. Thank you so much, Preety, for your time and your expert opinion on how HR needs to start looking up and how to gear themselves up to be visible and also to make it to the next level. Thank you so much for that. Ashish, back to
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Preeti, and I hope to see many more HR on the board after your session. Okay, thanks. Okay, so we go to the last session. We still have more than 150 audience on board, and last one always kept for the best, by the best, for the best. Okay, it doesn't mean that number one, number two were not the best. Okay, so here I am sharing the screen. Let me go. Okay, to introduce our third speaker for a day.
You don't even need an introduction for him, Sanjay. Come on.
Okay, sir. Anyway, it is chaired by you, so I leave it up to you. But Sanjay, Dr.
No, no,
Sanjay
go
Muthal
ahead.
is CEO of Kontempore Leadership and Business Solution. Is coach and mentor to me, I would call it, and to many HR people in the industries. He has a more than 3 decades of corporate HR consulting, executive search experience in India, abroad, outstanding track record in the department of CHRO, group strategy head, independent board director, consulting background, into L&D, OD, and HR, and he is independent director on the board of LIC, AMC, and mutual fund. Prior to his getting into executive search, he is HR professional, okay, and he worked in many companies. Can call it, the last one was Ajay Paramal as a president HR, then various HR leadership role in RPG, Hinduja, and other MNC like Park Davis and Paxt. And yes, he was out of India also for a long period of time, Middle East, Asia, and UK. Over to you, Raja sir, to chair this session.
Okay. Thanks so much. It's wonderful to have a friend to chat with. So I've known Sanjay for many years and a very dynamic person. That's why I said you don't need any introductions for him. And Sanjay, thanks for being here. And why don't you share your thoughts? And then I'm sure we will have some questions for you, both from the audience as well as from me.
Yes, Raja, thank you. Moment I saw you, I thought we were on HR panel or something like that. So good to understand we are doing something in executive search side, because Joe, what is your soul? Pinda is always in HR. So everything of mine gets ultimately diverted or converged into what HR is. And good to see that change happen across industry. And I'm sure Preety and Vijay will bear me out that every business has become people's business now. And the people who manage people are the HR people. And I think, therefore, it's a good time for, first of all, anybody to be in human resources. And I'm glad a lot of organizations now, the route to CEO is via HR. And hence, I think the appreciation of human resource as a function is at the apex today. Another black swan event that happened, which is the current pandemic, also brought HR to the forefront, because today, if at all there is anybody who is CEO's thinking partner, it is the HR. It is the HR leader. So shoving away my HR hat, and I'm cognizant that we are talking about executive search in this forum this evening. So what search to me means is essentially, very colloquially putting, finding the right leader for the right role. Now, it is as simple as that, but it is as complex as the way Vijay and Preety has explained. Because most of the time, you are trying to find somebody who's not visible. You're trying to find somebody who's not in the race of looking for change in the job. Because if he is already looking for a change in the role, then there are reasons for him to move out, or as a reason for him to, that he's lost interest in the current role or whatever. We're actually looking at people those 10% who are not listed anywhere, those who are not today looking at change, those who are not actively pursuing any career opportunities. And why those 10%? Because those are the 10% who are doing extremely well in their current role, have huge pathway for growth that is coming up their lane in the same organization. Therefore, they don't think there is need to change, and therefore have a terrific sense of purpose in what they are doing today. So when we get a mandate, or when I particularly get a mandate, or firm gets a mandate, my entire focus is reaching out to those people who are not actively in, loosely speaking, job market. Now, how does one do that? Because in connected world, social media, very apparent are those who are visible to you. There are apparent people who are on LinkedIn's of this world, or whatever you may say, the websites that have similar kind of opportunities available in terms of positioning their own profile and CV or of kind. So the reach to passive searcher is the fundamental for me in the executive search business. And therefore, to reach there is where a search professional from the search side needs to have those networks, needs to have those connectedness, needs to have that ability to reach people through and what I call as primary search and not secondary search. The secondary searches are always through LinkedIn's of this world. Primary search is where either you'll go specific headhunting. Now, if I'm doing for a search and I know there is a leader who's sitting in Tata Group, who's the person I know in Tata Group, and therefore try and reach out to that person who's not actually the candidate, but get some kind of a validation whether you are approaching the right candidate or not through a person who's working in the same group. Most of the time, there is so much information about this person available through people that he has worked with. And to me, those pointers are very, very strong. The formal pointers will always be doctored, but informal pointers are the pointers which are absolutely getting you to the right zone. And why is the informal pointers are better? Because the informal pointers are bereft of any vested interest. When I am positioning myself, then I'm using a loaded word. I have my vested interest to be noticed by the world outside. But when I am being referred by somebody else, then he doesn't know or doesn't want to, or always wants to say something that he knows about me, good, bad, ugly, whatever. And therefore, personality and the leadership trait of people to me gets visible through this filter. And that I have used effectively in my last 10 odd years that I have spent in the company. So that's one very, very important piece. Second, in terms of when I do my own assessment of people, most of the time, one fundamental difference that I have noticed or that I do is where do you start search? You know, do you start search HR upwards downwards? And what do you mean by that? HR upwards is what are the specs? 20 years of experience, leadership role, should have worked in Indian group, must be at a kind of revenue size of revenue ticket size of X amount, X revenue handled, etc., etc. Or do you go business downwards? Understand the business first, understand the levers of the business, then understand what is the contribution that this particular role plays in the revenue contribution in that particular business, and then go downwards from there. Then you'll hit the HR specs much lower in the ladder. But if you start with HR specs, then you get completely flummoxed. And believe you me, in this part of the world, the doctoring of CV is so beautifully done that you almost think you are getting the most ideal suitor for your daughter's wedding. You know, the way CVs or the performances is described. I'm not saying it's faking, it's described. It almost, when you look at that, you think, I think here is my man or a woman, but it's not so. So it's better to understand the role that you're doing search for, from the impact on the business. First of all, understand the business itself, the role, what it contributes and has impact on the business, and come downwards. You specification, etc., etc. One must, and I insist, is always to meet up with the hiring manager. Because most of the time, what you hear in your first brief, and most of the time, either it can come from, if it is coming from CEO, it is fantastic. Sometimes when it comes from HR leader, you might miss out some of the nuances that this particular role has. A manager can give you a better, and I think here is where you get a value-added insight into the background of the person that you're going to hunt for. Then when you get into the market, as I said, you look for the primary search of the candidate, get some pointers towards that particular, and work out broad 3 to 5 kind of shortlist for leadership role. I have one of the parameters that I fix up with any corporation that I work with is that for a CEO role, I wouldn't present more than 5 people. At best, you will meet 3 of them, and you will have at least 2 of them being liked by you. So the precision that you bring to that search is as if you are client and you are doing that search for yourself, and then get very, very specific on entire due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
So candidate due diligence, after understanding the role, business, etc., and the ecosystem, candidate due diligence is one of the most important facet of the executive search business. And then when I say due diligence is about meeting up with person, getting through, running with him in terms of his, like Vijay described, having a long chat, and mostly in informal settings. And that's when everybody is good in their own space. They're able to describe about themselves and their achievements much better. And when you do that, I also try and get a couple of informal references about this person, which are endorsing what I think good about him. And therefore, when I recommend these 5, then I'm validated my own recommendation through already some of the indirect references. And therefore, I have a better standing when I meet the CEO next time by saying that X, Y, Z is what I'm presenting. This is what he has done, and this is what I hear about him, and which I can validate if this person gets selected with you.
Okay, great.
So all in all, it's a Raja. I mean, I can't talk to you, but most of us, we know at the end of the day, every decision to hire or not to hire is intuition-led. It is a gut. Right? There is so much science to recruiting and selecting and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it is at that gut level, that intuition level.
And also the chemistry.
And I think,
and also the chemistry.
And the chemistry, of course. But when you are interviewing as a search partner, then you're more looking at, presenting the best suited for that role. And lots of time one needs in today's context to spend time on the cultural due diligence of the individual. And I think Vijay talked about it, Preety also referred about some of these, is that every person after 15 years of experience in whatever he or she does, has subject expert knowledge, or supposed to have, let's say.
Yeah.
When you get into the general management role, then it's all about understanding business, understanding business strategies, and understanding where these strategies are getting deployed and converted into revenue for the organization. So once you have these kind of filters visible to you as a business leader, that's when you're rounded a general management leader. Now, beyond that, how do you work in the particular setup, in the particular culture, in the particular value system of every organization? Because every organization nurtures a different kind of a culture, values, and DNA. And as we know, culture in the organization is always top down. It's never bottom up. It's the leadership and the board which decides to set up a particular type of culture in the organization. Now, these versus what he comes in from, is there anything that can sync? If there is a syncing that is happening, then well and good. If not happening, then you have a problem. So the candidate is damn good. Your informal references on him are very strong. His contributions are noteworthy. He has made an impact. But if you see a red signal here, or if you even see an amber signal here, then I think you need to be extremely cautious in taking this particular candidature forward. Even if I get amber signal, most of the time I drop the candidate. Because willy-nilly, when we will hit the last mile in terms of the entire closure of the process, you will see some challenges. Or if you don't see challenges there, in first 3 to 6 months of his appointment, there will be challenges. And then if you create those challenges in 3 to 6 appointments, then you have a problem about your own reputation of yourself as well as your firm. So I think it's a pretty rounded, well researched, but as I said, beyond science, there is a gut, and all of us, I'm sure Vijay, Preety will bear me out, live on this gut in terms of our final recommendation to the client. And so that's how the world goes on.
Sanjay, thanks for such very deep inputs. You mentioned how you look at a candidate, right? And how you look at shortlisting this person, or how do you find this person fitting into some role and giving it. Now, word block. You don't entertain any CVs from people who want to send them to you directly. Now, this person here I am, wanting to be noticed, wanting to apply for a role, and I believe that I have it in me. How do I get noticed? How, as a candidate, can I get noticed by people like you and Vijay and Preety to say, please consider me, I am good at this?
Yeah, so this question of why I'm not being noticed by itself is a starting point itself.
I want to know how you will, how you think the candidate.
So this car needs a push. Fact that how I'm being not noticed itself shows the failure of the person of being not noticed so far. What I mean to say is that how does one get noticed in anything that there is something called
Raja.
Sorry, Preety.
Sorry if I can interrupt. Can I respond also to this?
Please.
Let's Sanjay finish and then you can respond.
Yeah, Sanjay, you finish, then I'll respond.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
So you know what? Every one of us who go to work, and every one of us who has our own personality, we are our brands by ourselves. We know what is good for us and we know what is not good for us. We know what naturally aligned to us, what doesn't get naturally aligned. And our belief system in these are so strong that people say, "Yeah, मुझसे तो होता नहीं है, मैं introvert हूँ. मुझसे तो ये होता नहीं, मुझसे बहुत होता है, मैं extrovert हूँ." Or whatever. I'm not saying either of which is right or wrong. But if you want to get noticed, then you need to get noticed, right? either contribution of your work should be so great that you are at the podium getting recognition. Your contribution of your work should be so, if your contribution is not so great, people like me, then at least you should be networked enough for you to know people and people to know you. And third most important is, what is your mojo, what's driving you? If that driving you is so good, your innate value of your contribution to everything that you are doing is so good, then it's like diamond, you'll get noticed either way.
Okay.
I think for me, people that get sometimes over noticed is a problem, isn't it? You're probably getting into a wrong limelight. But if your work can speak for yourself, if your contribution can speak for yourself, and how does that happen? I mean, one side is the personality and the other side is the quality of work that you are doing. If both of these can get tandem into what you are, I think the visibility comes automatically.
Okay, great. Preety, you wanted to say something on this?
Yes, I just thought I'll add one area which we've sort of started to prioritize that on. And this is to respond to your question, how do you pick and how do you identify? So diversity of experience and diversity of leadership context is something that we are sort of prioritizing on. So what does that mean? It's a very counterintuitive point to stability, because should you be job hopping and hence building a diverse career? The answer is no, that's not what I'm saying. So when I say diversity, we are saying how are you moving? So it could be across functions. It could be across different aspects of the business or organization. It could be India and global if there is that opportunity that you have. It could be moving from a line HR to a corporate COE kind of a role if you are still in your mid-career. So just this diversity, moving from a large, well-institutionalized company to a more startup entrepreneurial environment. So how are you testing yourself? How are you pushing the envelope on creating diversity, and how are you hence building your narrative is something that it's very easily visible. So, how do you hence differentiate yourself? One of the ways could be this.
Okay. And all of us have a point of view about our own career. Right. Like I said, many of us at mid-level, when you reach, is when you need to be extremely focused on what's going to be your now larger play, either in that organization or outside organization. So all of us must understand what career that I want to make and what opportunity for that I must get, and have those conversations early in the career. Most of the time, we are led by people than ourselves leading. I'm talking about in the case of organization. When you are at the mid-level, first the junior level, mid-level, and when you come into the senior level, that's when you find that either in the mid-zone, you have spent too much time. And therefore, the ability for leading now at the top apex is limited. And I'm talking about a very typical context of 60s. You're already into late 50s. Now, how do you plan your career is left to you, right? Most of the time, if mediocrity sits in wealth, then that pushing that envelope becomes far difficult.
Okay.
And many times, I'm sorry to say this very bluntly, but because of the talent attrition and so on and so forth, we are very happy in celebrating mediocrity. And hence, many times, we are not able to produce good leaders because they also get belief that what they are doing is the best, because they are getting anyway good increments, good promotion, every 3 years, some title change and so on and so forth. So individually, I know whether I I'm actually hitting my next bar or not. And if I'm not, then I need to push it for myself.
Okay. There is always one question which keeps coming in people's mind. Because with so many new age companies coming to being, and you're looking for people, how important is the length of experience versus quality of experience?
Yeah, so length of experience is becoming passé. Quality of experience is becoming very important.
Okay.
And
okay.
where it is not passé, then you need to work with the client and tell him it should be passé. So I have a conversation when we pick up the job search where he says was less than 25 years for a CEO won't work. And then you must counter engage by saying why it will not work. If I get a candidate who has ticked off first all the boxes early, more than that, has had an impact on the share value creation, on the governance and what have you, strong P&L orientation, why would you insist?
Yeah.
Good news is today there are very good people in this category.
Okay.
And they
Okay.
pretty much dying today.
Thank you so much, Sanjay, for your thoughts and sharing your views.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful to hear from you, Vijay and Preety. And I'm sure people who logged on to the call have benefited from this. I benefited, I learned a lot. Ashish, over to you.
Thank you, Raja, and thanks, Dr. Sanjay, Muthal, Vijay, and Preety. Before I want closing remark from each one of you. I want to run a video which we missed out in the beginning. That's from none other than our HR technology partner Zimio. I have activated now. Okay. Hope you can see the screen.
No, Ashish. Yeah, now we can see your screen.
You are saying something, sir?
No, I'm saying no volume.
Okay, more volume.
No volume is coming.
Ashish, there's some disturbance sound there. Yes, Ashish, I guess it's better you post the link. Everyone can watch.
Thanks, Ashish.
Thank you once again. Okay, so closing remark from now three of you. Let me start with Vijay, sir.
Great. No, it was a great learning experience for me, especially some of the points what Sanjay made. In fact, I have one question for Sanjay actually. A lot of time when we interact with people, their orientation to money is becomes a one way of evaluating. So how you take that one particular factor when you are evaluating?
Yeah, money everybody needs today, right? I mean, we grew up, at least our vintage grew up where parents said money is not everything. Learn well, do this, that. Today, everybody says money is not everything after you go at certain level of creating your own wealth. I think the challenge of the money into the finer nuances, to my understanding, is becoming very, very, very louder as you reach very high levels in the organization. We have had conversations which are broken down because on few lakhs of rupees, for example, or whatever, third car and so on and so forth. So it's very difficult to say either or, but during the conversations, and therefore it's very good to sound off people at the beginning of the career from both sides, which is to client as well as candidate, in terms of when we are into that last leg of the selection, and you know these two are the front horses. That's when you must have had some closure on the compensation tick off from both the sides. In principle, there will be 5-10% variation in the last leg, because at that stage you also have opportunity to withdraw somebody, because if you know the expectations are just not matching, this doesn't make sense to go forward.
Yeah.
But money orientation, yes, everybody has a view, but the way person presents his view on the money also is a pointer to his or her personality and the value system. And one can make out whether there is a meeting ground or there is no meeting ground here, or will this person ever should be presented to a group or a client who's not so much, let's say, so much excited about providing more money and so on and so forth. So I think it's a very, very close balancing at that.
Thank you.
I don't have universal answer for that.
Thank you, Doctor, for that input. Can I go to Preety to give a closing remark?
Thank you, Ashish. I don't know what closing remarks to give, except that I had equally a good time listening to Vijay, listening to Sanjay, their perspective or what they've experienced. I wish this forum could have more live interactions. I could talk to audience or they could talk to me. That would have been wonderful. Because then as Vijay said, an interactive session would be very helpful. But I had a good time. Thank you for inviting me.
In fact, what we had done, Preety, is some of the questions which I asked you actually came from the audience.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Preety.
Thank you.
Can I go to Dr. Muthal for a quick closing remark?
Yeah, thanks Ashish and Raja, and pleasure meeting you, Vijay and Preety. Great insights I had from Vijay and Preety and Raja, of course. But important thing I think is in everything that you do as a human being, the starting point is self-belief, and your career, your life is about self-belief. Second, it is about, for me, integrity is extremely important, because that's one competency where you have either score of 0 or 10. So have integrity in life, have purpose in life, and I think then you become like a diamond. You get visibility all over and everywhere. So what we want to become is actually devised by our own purpose in life.
Yeah.
And I think therefore executive search, etc., can be helpful, but they are only enablers. Ultimately, what you become is what you want to become.
Thanks.
And I think therefore, as we always say, keep your intentions good, integrity good, have purpose in life, because if your intentions are meaningful, somehow forces of nature also connive to make it happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Raja sir, thank you so much. And yes, closing remark from you also of both the session, part 1, part 2. And my question to you, do we need part 3 as well? Because most of us, were not available this time. You need to unmute, sir.
Ashish, thanks. There is so much learning which have happened in these 2 sessions that I'm sure the participants will need time to assimilate and practice and learn from it. So delay the next session for some more time. Don't bring it out immediately. Let's do it after maybe a quarter or 4 months.
Correct.
And it's been a wonderful learning experience, as I said. As I was putting it in the chat box also, if people felt it was very beneficial for me to listen to experts from across organizations. But there was a common theme which emerged as well from everyone to say how you can be visible, what you need to do, what skill sets you have to provide, and how focused you have to be. And so I think that was the learning for me. And I'm sure the session was very, very useful for the audience and what we intended to achieve. I think, Ashish, we seem to have achieved that.
Great. And I like to again, bring back to that same analogy of love triangle. So I can say, if you're not hunted, you are not required. If you are required, you may be hunted. Yeah. Thank you so much, all of you. Thanks everybody for joining. We had a almost 175 audience right now. Still 90 plus are there. Have a nice summer vacation and
Thank you.
nice evening. Thank you. Bye bye. Thanks, Ansh, and thanks, Jimmy, our
Okay.
technology
Thank you.
partner.
Bye.
Please visit their website.
Thank you,
YouTube
Vijay, sir.
link I
Thank you,
have shared.
Preety.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Vijay sir. Bye bye.
You.